Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and with many of the pandemic benefits ending, the Liberals have just submitted Bill C2, which looks to be their final pandemic benefit bill during the pandemic, or at least they hope that it will be. And inside of this bill, there's a lot going on, but today we're going to talk about one aspect of it, which is the CWLB, or the Canada Workers Lockdown Benefit, which is a $300 per week benefit. But as the name may suggest to you, this isn't going to be something that everyone is eligible for. It's the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit, so it's only for people in situations when there's a lockdown. But there's a lack of clarity around what this lockdown is, who's going to be able to decide it, what is the definition of all this, but now we finally have the benefit bill text. So in today's video, we're going to go over exactly what the details are, whether or not you may be eligible for this $300 per week benefit, and all of the other details that you need to know. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and use any of the links in the description to learn more about building your wealth in Canada, and when you use those links, you support the channel further. But now let's get closer to this bill, let's get close up to it and take a look at the actual text that's being debated in the House of Commons right now. As you can see here, this is actually Bill C2, and there's a lot included in it, along with extensions like the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit and the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. That's also in this text, but we're going to focus here on the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit Act. And first we need to go over some of the basics of this program. The first one is that it is, again, a $300 per week benefit. And we need to talk about when people are actually able to apply for this. If I scroll down here a little bit, we can get a little bit more detail here when we find out in the eligibility section what this program's date range is. It's going to begin October 24th, 2021 and end on May 7th, 2022. So you may be saying, hey Russell, it's already well past October 24th, 2021. Well, this benefit, if it were to pass through the House of Commons, if you are eligible based on all of the criteria we're going to go over, you can apply retroactively all the way back until October 24th, and it's set to end May 7th. In terms of the broader eligibility, it's very similar to the wording around the CRB in that you have to have a valid SIN number, you need to be at least 15 years old, be resident and present in Canada during the week of this benefit application, and of course you have to have earned $5,000 in the previous year from either employment or self-employment or the past 12 months, not only just 2020. But the thing we didn't have clarity on before that we are now getting clarity on is what actually constitutes a lockdown. Who gets to decide which area is in a lockdown and when, and as a result, who can apply for these benefits? Well, that's where we get a little bit of clarity inside of this bill, because we now have the definition of a lockdown order. They say that a lockdown is an order or regulation or other instrument made by a competent authority that imposes, for the reasons related to COVID-19, among other measures. And these notes, we're going to talk about competent authority here in just a second. But in this paragraph, they're saying that if the premises for commercial activities or services that are not essential to preserving life, health, public safety, or basic societal functioning are closed, that could be constituted as a lockdown order, or as a requirement applicable in the region specified in the order that persons stay at home except for reasons that are essential to preserving life, health, public safety, or basic societal function. So these are the baseline definitions for when an area is in lockdown, but who is actually the one that gets to decide whether or not these things actually happen? Well, they're saying that this decision has to be made by a competent authority, and we have another definition for what actually is a competent authority. If we scroll up, we get this definition that a competent authority means any entity lawfully entitled to impose public health measures. So their list here that seems to be exhaustive is the government of Canada, the government of a province or territory, a municipality or a city, a local government, a public health authority, or a council, government, or entity that's authorized to act on behalf of Indigenous groups. So to simplify what I just said, essentially any level of government, whether it's Canada-wide, province-wide, or just municipal, like on the city level, if any of these governments close any non-essential services due to COVID, or if they issue a warning to the public to stay at home and not go out except for issues that are essential, this would constitute a lockdown order. But even if all of those things happen, things get shut down, you get told to stay at home, and then the local government says, hey, this is a lockdown order, well, even then, it's not automatic that you'd be able to apply for this benefit because of this section, the designation of region, and the recommendation. Essentially, what all of this is saying is that when these local governments make these lockdown orders, well, still the employment minister, that's Carla Qualtrough, would have to recognize those lockdown orders and then make the recommendation that this zone be considered an area that is under lockdown, and as a result unlock this Canada Worker Lockdown benefit. And one of the criteria that Carla Qualtrough has to now consider based on this legislation is that it has to be a lockdown of 14 consecutive days in order for it to actually be considered a lockdown zone and to fall under this lockdown order definition that allows this benefit to actually go out to people. And then, as with any bill, it's important to go over the regulations section. The reason this is so important is because anything that's written into this regulations section, well, the current government who passes the bill would be able to make these changes without actually having to ask the other political parties and take it to a vote. They just have the power to make these changes. So if this bill passes, Carla Qualtrough and the Liberals would be able to change the definition of what a lockdown order is at any time. They'd be able to fix a lower number of days than 14 for them to actually call it a lockdown area. They'd be able to prescribe different sources of income to allow for people to qualify at that minimum $5,000 level. And the final thing they'd be able to change is prescribe any other income for the purpose of paragraph 4 1G. This is essentially saying the same thing, that they can alter what counts as income when it comes to actually being eligible for this benefit. And actually another important note here is that they would be able to extend this benefit if they would want to from May 7th being the final date that you can receive the Canada Worker Lockdown benefit to a maximum of July 2nd, 2022. So you can see how honed in this program is on only very specific situations, right? Even though there is all this sort of layout for what constitutes a lockdown, you have to go through all of these steps, and then Carla Qualtrough has to say, yes, you are also in a lockdown zone, at least this is my understanding, for you to be able to receive this Canada Workers Lockdown benefit. And that's not to mention what the implementation may look like on the CRA's side. And currently, this benefit and this entire bill, Bill C2, is being debated in the House of Commons, and they only have under 20 days left to actually debate this and get it passed through. And there's questions around whether or not this bill will actually pass. You may remember that since the election, not many of the seats actually changed in terms of the distribution of how many seats each party had in the House of Commons. Essentially, the Liberal government, in order to pass a bill like this, needs support from one of the other major parties, the NDP, the Conservatives, or the Bloc Québécois. Now, questions are out there on whether or not this bill would even be supported, and let me show you a clip from a recent interview that has some questions about this.
So I know in that news conference we heard from the Deputy Prime Minister that conversations have been going on with other parties. What is it that makes you so confident that you can get one of these other parties on board with this? We've heard from the NDP saying they don't think this goes far enough. We've heard from the Conservatives who want some targeted measures. Pierre Poilievre, the finance critic, said at a news conference yesterday they support some measures for hospitality and tourism. And we know that the Bloc Québécois, we're still waiting for some clarity there. So, you know, who's going to be your dance partner here to get this done before the holiday break?
Well, I think what you'll see in this package is something that all parties have called for, whether it's enhanced sickness and caregiving or continued sickness and caregiving benefits related to COVID, whether it is support for tourism and hospitality. I think parties understand the need for us to come together, and they will see in this package things that they can individually get behind. And once again, I can tell you without betraying confidences that I've had really positive and productive conversations with my critics.
So even though the NDP have said, hey, the Liberals can't count on our support for every single vote, and the Conservatives have criticized this bill, saying that perhaps it's too hefty in its spending and it's not cutting back on spending quite enough, Carla Qualtrough, the employment minister, still thinks that they're going to be able to pass this, and she must think that they're going to pass it very quickly, because if they make it to December 17th, that's the last day in the House of Commons, Commons before they take their winter break, well, then they could be waiting all the way until January 31st to get back to work and potentially pass this bill through. So time is of the essence, and we're going to be following it right here to let you know if this is going to pass, how is it going to affect the other things like the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit, the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, what changes are going to happen to EI long term. There's lots of things that are going to be going on, so make sure to subscribe so that you can be up to date and hit that notification bell so you'll actually know when I post a video, because sometimes they don't get pushed out to everybody. And I'm curious what you think about all of this. Let me know down in the comments. I read every single one and I try to get back to as many as I possibly can. So let me know what your thoughts are about this down there. I know there's lots of different takes about this. And while you're down there, check out all the links in the description. You can get, I believe actually, 2 free stocks with Wealthsimple. They have a promotion going on right now. There's a link down there if you want to take a closer look at that. But with all that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.